Retail Insights, smarter insights for the global retailer.
Hi, it's Eric Quetham from WorldPay. Excited to spend the next couple of minutes sharing some insights we're seeing across the shifts in consumer behavior and specifically how that's impacting payments. Really excited also to have Jane Shepardson with me today, the chair of My Wardrobe HQ, one of the businesses who is leading this change. Jane, we've seen a lot of change in digitization and the way in which consumers are shopping. We estimate actually by 2040 that over 95% of purchases could be taking place online. I know you've thought about this as well as other changes as you've formed your new business. Can you share a bit more about that with us?
Hi, yeah. Well, My Wardrobe HQ is a peer-to-peer luxury clothing rental platform. So what that does, it allows both individuals and brands to either lend their clothes to the platform or to rent clothes from the platform. You access the platform very much like any kind of a shopping website, any online website. You browse through the clothes and you decide on what it is that you want, and then you click a button and you can rent it from 4 days up to a month. So this kind of certainly helps to make the fashion industry much more sustainable, but it also allows you to have fun with fashion without feeling that the real sort of guilt factor. The other benefit for someone who's lending their wardrobe is that you can actually monetize your wardrobe. So you can look at your wardrobe as a sort of investment, if you like. So it kind of changes the way that you think about buying things. It makes your buying decisions much more considered. And also, you know, we're very, very au fait nowadays with renting things. We rent cars, we rent apartments, we rent holiday apartments, and we even rent furniture. So it seems to me that renting clothes actually is not that big a deal. And it's something that in the US at the moment has already become very, very acceptable. I think in the UK, perhaps it's a newer business.
Yeah, very cool, and definitely a trend that we're seeing. Certainly, the impact of COVID has changed the way people think about shopping and buying, and I think we're seeing that in the data. We recently went out and surveyed about 30,000 consumers just to understand how those preferences are changing, and we learned a lot. We learned that people picked up lots of new buying behaviors during the COVID isolation period. Almost 85% of consumers said that they started shopping a different way. I'd actually love to meet the 15 who said they didn't, because I find it hard to believe that there wasn't some sort of shift in your behavior. But more importantly, what we saw is that consumers actually said about 20% of those trends will change, right? I think if you went back to 2019 and you said, hey, next year in 2020, a fifth of the population is going to buy in a totally different way, you would think that whoever made that statement is crazy, but it's true, right? These preferences are really changing. It's exciting to see the model that you guys are building. It reminds me a lot of what we've seen in subscriptions over the last 5 years. In 2015, only about 1 in 5 consumers had some sort of a subscription account or subscription service. This year, we think that'll be about 4 on average across the population around the world. So just in 5 years, we've seen that increase significantly. And I think that model is actually very similar to rental. And we've seen a lot of companies move to different rental models, and probably something that you've picked up on. Maybe share a bit more about how you've thought about that and what sort of consumer preferences really led you towards this model.
Yeah, I think the subscription model is really fascinating. I mean, clearly for a business like ours, it gives us some kind of revenue that we can depend on. But it's something that one can't introduce straight away, especially with a business that sort of is going to take a while for people to get used to it. It's a very, very new sector in this country. So I think we had to start off by offering people pieces that they might wear to an event or a wedding, get them used to rental as a concept. And then by this autumn, we hope to start a subscription model. And interestingly enough, in the US at the moment, where rental is probably about 4 or 5 years ahead of us, the subscription model works really, really well. In fact, there are women in the US in their sort of 20s and 30s who don't really buy wardrobe for their working week. They literally have a subscription, and they rent it and they go and pick it up from a WeWork space or whatever each week, and then return it the following week, which means they don't have to worry about going out and buying boring work clothes or that sort of thing, they can just sort of rent it as they go along. So I think it's kind of an obvious thing for us. It just kind of took a while for us to get there. We had to sort of move quite slowly.
So what I love about the model you've launched is it really makes these items more accessible. And we're actually seeing that more broadly as a trend. I think, first and foremost, we had subscriptions. Now we have a lot of rental. We're also starting to see a lot of buy now, pay later, which is taking higher price items and splitting those payments into multiple installments over some period of time with the likes of Affirm or Afterpay or even Klarna. And it feels like, the shift in certainly the younger, demographics, whether that's Gen Z or millennials, are really starting to adapt to that model and the ability of either sharing items or paying in small increments is very much at the core of how they like to shop.
Yeah, I think this is fascinating, actually. I love anything that allows us to buy wonderful, expensive things for a fraction of the cost. So I think it's great that this is happening, because I also think, these people are obviously very discerning, that they want the expensive, lovely things, and they don't necessarily want to have to pay for them up front. And actually, it's one of the things that I really love about rental is that for example, we have a £3,000 Gucci suit on our site. And I could never afford to buy that. I never would buy it. It's kind of all over embroidery. I would wear it once and people would go, oh my God, she's wearing that suit again. But it allows you could actually rent that suit for £30 a day. So all of a sudden, this incredible suit is available to anybody really who's got £30 a day to spend. We're actually, funnily enough, we're introducing a buy now, pay later as well, which we should have up and running by the autumn, because I think it's really important. We need to be as accessible as possible to as many people as possible.
I really love how My Wardrobe HQ is thinking about all those different ways in which consumers are looking to buy and to shop. The other really cool example we've seen lately is with the likes of Beauty Pie, who are taking these high-end cosmetic products, demarketing them or debranding them, and buying them in bulk in order to sell at lower prices. Obviously taking the cost out through the marketing and influencer cost and other things, even potentially packaging, which I think is another really great example of this trend we're seeing.
I totally agree. I think it's amazing. And in fact, I think in the whole beauty sector, it's probably an easier thing to do because the actual product itself is not that expensive. It is the marketing and the packaging that makes it sort of puts it out of most people's reach. So yeah, anything like that I think is really exciting.
Yeah, and probably the other really big thing we're seeing around the overall experience is the introduction of augmented reality and AI. And we've done some research on this lately, and we're surprised really actually when we saw the numbers, which was 35% of consumers have actually shopped using some sort of augmented reality or AI experience. And actually 45% who hadn't actually said they would like to in the near future.
Do you know what? This really excites me, the whole augmented reality. And I think particularly since COVID came along, when people realized, actually, you know what? We can't go out and actually do these things. So we've got to find a way of showing them in another way. And in fact, I was asking some friends of mine who are involved in augmented reality whether they could provide me with a virtual Chanel jacket that I could wear on a Zoom call. And unfortunately, the technology isn't quite there. I mean, it very, very nearly is, but not quite there. But it seems to me to be an area that everybody is fascinated with right now. And I think as soon as we do start to get it right for clothing and for sort of and to get those three-dimensional imagery looking good, I think it's going to be a game changer. I really do.
Yeah, we see that in the data as well. Consumers are already saying they would be shopping and buying if they could within that experience. We saw it was roughly 29% of consumers said that if they could actually make the purchase in that experience, they would. And then, about 60% said, you know what, you don't even have to enable it in that setting. I'm happy to go somewhere else and click through to actually do the buying. which is fascinating. It's probably one of the rare examples where the consumer behavior is actually probably out in front of the technology.
I think you're dead right, and I hope the tech catches up soon. I really do. I think it's just it's such a fascinating area.
Yeah. Speaking about kind of the consumer process, omnichannel, one of the themes that has been out there, and I'm sure you've thought about as you started to build My Wardrobe HQ, obviously a key thing for any big retailer to be thinking about, probably even more important now as we've gone through this COVID era, as folks start to reevaluate the needs from both the digital and the in-store experience. What are some of the ways you've thought about the balance of that experience and how you might serve the consumer through both channels?
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it? We've seen so much change in terms of omnichannel over the last 5 years. And in fact, pre-COVID, I think we were getting to the stage where a lot of retailers felt that their real business was actually online, and that actually the stores, the bricks and mortar stores, were going to be a showcase and something a bit more experiential to give the customer something extra. And I think that's absolutely right. I think COVID coming along has probably accelerated that process. For rental, it's really important that we have both. It's really important for us to have as many opportunities as we can to actually show them the garments so that they can feel them. And, you know, these are expensive luxury garments. They do feel amazing and they look incredible. So prior to COVID coming along, we had a store at Brompton Road where people could rent from, they could buy from, they could place the order online, they could pick it up in store. We had a shop within shop in Liberties. Again, people could come in, they could learn about rental, they could rent from that store, they could return it to our shop, they could return it via DPD. It's so important for us to be able to be as flexible as we possibly can and let the consumer do it in the way that she wants to do it.
Yeah, it really is all about flexibility. There's this really fascinating study actually of Argos about a decade ago when they introduced this idea of buy your way, which was order ahead, pick up in store, order in store, deliver to home, and they created all of these different channels by which consumers could shop. And what they saw was actually about a 25% net increase in total sales by offering these different channels. And so I think, that's really the power of omnichannel is one, when you're able to enable experiences that meet the needs of a broader set of consumers. And then two, when you're able to actually tie it together and make it seamless and start to generate value off of that. And when we think about it in payments, it's actually a quite difficult thing to do, and very few have cracked it globally. But the handful of providers who are now doing it are absolutely, I would say, distancing themselves from the market. The other really interesting thing we've seen just as a payments company outselling to these retailers is we used to really deal with two types of individuals. The individual who ran the store and just thought about the in-store experience, and then usually somebody actually in marketing who was running the website, whether that's in-house or some sort of hosted platform. And now those jobs have actually come together. Tell me a bit about kind of your experience and what you've seen in that transition.
So much has happened in the last 5 years in terms of omnichannel. We used to absolutely see the stores as being one thing and the e-commerce team as being another team, and they've absolutely come together as one recently. And of course, we need to see exactly how our customer likes to shop. She doesn't necessarily only want to shop in the stores or only want to shop online. She wants to use both. She wants to maybe pick up in the store one day, the next week she may want to pick up online. She may want to pay for it online, pick it up in store. So the more flexible we can be for her, the better it is for everybody.
Absolutely. We've been following the data closely during the COVID impact, and it's amazing, actually, the distribution of performance across different retailers has really actually widened, and there are clear winners and losers. And I think the businesses who are kind of understanding these consumer trends and who are adapting to them quickly are absolutely gaining ground across the broader audience. At WorldPay, we're absolutely focused on the payment side of this, right? It's exciting for us to think about all these new use cases and to build products and services that serve them. And then, as you mentioned before, try to bring them together in a way that provides value back to the retailer or the merchant who's trying to obviously in turn drive more sales and revenue out of that. As you've thought about kind of payments in your business, I would imagine it's absolutely a core part of your business and a key enabler. Anything you would add just in terms of how you guys have thought about that?
I think the only thing that I can say is that we found that the more flexible that we can be, and the more that we can learn about what our customers really want and where they want it and how they want it, the better that we can serve them.
Well, just to recap, I think it's an exciting time, right? Only accelerated by what's happened at a global scale and the impact of COVID-19. Certainly, we're seeing a lot of new ways of buying emerge. Very exciting to see My Wardrobe HQ take advantage of some of those and really interesting model that you guys have built. So really appreciate you joining us today and sharing your time. And we look forward to watching you guys' success in the future.
It's been a huge pleasure. Thank you so much.
Retail Insights, smarter insights for the global retailer.